Now, Stacie Marshall has inherited her family's farm in a small Appalachian valley in the US state of Georgia. She'd vaguely known about the history of her family and their land, but it wasn't until she moved into her grandparents' house that she realised her family had in fact owned 7 enslaved people. Well, Stacie, the only young woman running a farm in the valley, is trying to make amends for the wrongs of her ancestors. Stacie is with us now, live from Georgia, as is Nkechi Taifa, who is a civil and human rights lawyer and long-standing reparations advocate. She's going to discuss with us whether individuals like Stacie should be paying out of their own pocket or whether this is time for federal reparations. Good morning. At horrible o'clock, I should imagine it is for both of you. So thank you for getting up so early to speak to us. Stacie, let's start by speaking to you. And this came from a story that your grandfather told you, didn't he, when you were struggling to breastfeed?
Yes, it did. Yeah, I can recall it very vividly. I was nursing my firstborn daughter, and obviously that was a very emotional time, but I was at my grandfather's house and I was struggling to produce milk. And so he, in an effort to comfort me, said that I had inherited that from the women in my family, and then began to tell me how generations back there were 7 slaves that were purchased, and that one of those was a woman named Hester that was bought to feed the family, and she had 4 children. And so that was the first moment in my life where I learned about this family history.
And for you, you want to make amends. I'm just wondering how that manifests itself, because reparations within themselves can be controversial. But for you, what does making amends look like?
Sure. I think that is something that I feel very strongly in, just repairing what has been done. And I think there's the place of reconciliation and what it looks like to do the right thing is, there's this conviction to move forward to do the right thing, and then exploring the many different opportunities to do that. So for me, the conversation started really in my small community. After my grandparents passed away, and I moved into their home, and then realized that a lot of my neighbors who had grown up in this community and known my family, and our little farming community has had generations of family live close together. And I felt this importance of really engaging specifically our Black family community leaders here to really understand the story that they had experienced in our community. And so about 3 years ago, I started working with an anthropologist and a team of college students at a local college who just volunteered their time. And we began just recording testimonies and discussing these slave records and bringing it to the community members, and hoping that we might be able to find some of the descendants of Hester's family. And so that journey has been a really beautiful one. It's also been a painful one as well to talk and hear. I think both sides. It's at moments been uncomfortable, but these conversations have been able to have because I've had such a lifelong relationship with the people in this community. And so that was really first step to make, was right here locally.
Well, let's bring in Nkechi here, because you for a long time have spoken about the need for reparations. Just talk to us about what Stacie's doing there. Do you feel that's what people should be doing to make amends? Is that the right course of action?
Well, I want to just say right now, Stacie is a part of history in the making. She is part of history in the making. It's not a matter of either or, but plus as and what I'm speaking of is that I've been working for decades with respect to trying to get a federal bill passed that would have the federal government in the United States study the issue and develop reparation proposals for African Americans to seek to repair and atone for that period of history. It's not just the federal government, though. It's also state and local governments. It's corporations and industries. It's religious institutions. It's educational institutions. And it's also private estates as well. So it's not a matter of, well, we're just going to go one course. The harms from the enslavement era were multifaceted, thus the remedies must be multifaceted as well. I was involved just recently with a small city in the United States called Evanston, Illinois, which used tax dollars, creative use of tax dollars from its legal cannabis industry to fund reparation initiatives in that area. So that was on a local level. Now, Stacie is on an individual private estate level, and I think that is historic. I think that she needs to be applauded for her courage, and I think it needs to recognize that she is, in fact, whether she knows it or not, following some of the dictates of the reparation definitions, and I'm just going to go over them very, very quickly. In the context of Black people in the United States, the quest for reparations essentially constitutes 4 elements. Number 1, the formal acknowledgement that there was a historical wrong. Well, Stacie has done that. She has acknowledged that her family wronged persons. The recognition that the injury continued throughout the centuries and still manifests today. I think she's in the process of uncovering that now, the continuing impact, the commitment to redress. She has a commitment that she wants to repair, that she wants to heal, but also then the actual compensation in whatever form or forms are agreed upon. And that is essential because it cannot be what Stacie says should be the remedy. She needs to speak to the descendants. She needs to speak to injured parties. She needs to speak to communities and ask, what do you want? Not what do I, Stacie, the farmer, want for you? What do you want?
Well, that's what I wanted to pick up on, because Stacie, this is a complicated issue and you've touched on it, because you don't want to make this look like you're relieving the guilt of a white woman. This is about actually making a difference to people who've been harmed. And I also wonder what it is like being in Georgia. I mean, you're in the southern states of the US. It's prime Trump country. I can imagine many people are not necessarily backing your viewpoint.
Yeah, I've had definitely mixed responses.
I'm going to put that too.
And I would say that overwhelmingly, what has been surprising to me is the number of people coming forward that are holding their own family history and feeling the weightiness of that and the conviction of wanting also to be part of this time that we're in our country. I've had multitudes of people, even globally. I've had people in South Africa, people in Brazil reaching out and divulging their family's history with enslaving people. And I think that very much there are many people that really want to make a difference. But this is not just an external, what do we do? This is also an internal process. So I think for me, specifically living in this area, there's definitely kind of an association of you don't talk about these things because you don't want to dishonor your family. And so since we were small, we were told to kind of not talk about these things outside of the family. And if you do, then you dishonor the family. And I have had a person that sent me a message that claims to be a distant relative that said that I had dishonored my family's name, our family's name, on our national holiday, because the New York Times article came out on July 4th. And I think that that was really hard because I don't feel like I'm dishonoring my family's name. What I feel like I'm doing is feel like I'm actually honoring my family by telling the truth, because I was raised to be honest. And so to tell the truth is actually to do the right thing is actually honoring.
But also,
I also
Stacie,
want to honor the descendants of Hester. Like that's very important to me as well.
but we also have to be realistic, and maybe you want to come in on this, Nkechi, that reparations are not popular amongst Americans. I mean, I was looking this morning, a poll back in 2019 showed only 29% of Americans say that the government should pay cash reparations, clearly a lot higher amongst Black Americans, but only 15% of white Americans thinking that that's the right way forward.
So I just want to say there are many different polls out there, but what is the beautiful about the situation? The polls are going up and up and up. I mean, it is just amazing how far we have come in the past 40 years that I've been working on this issue, where you didn't even want to mouth the word reparations, and now it's definitely entered the mainstream. We're talking about an issue whose time has come. We're talking about a reckoning that is long past due. And when one of the things Stacie said kind of struck me, that generationally there's been an issue in their family in terms of being able to nurse their children. We also need to look at the generational trauma on the other side. Hester, what about her own children? I mean, so that harm is there on both sides, and that remedy and that healing must be there as well. And I think more and more people are beginning to see that there cannot be true racial healing until we acknowledge that past and set about the task of rectifying the future.
Nkechi, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Nkechi Taifa, who is a civil and human rights lawyer. We also heard there from Stacie Marshall, who is a farmer in the US state of Georgia.